From the first steps of your life, the presence of something greater may have manifested in a subtle but transformative way. Some of us carry invisible marks from an early age, traits that point to a special and silent calling that accompanies us throughout the years. It's as if the Creator had prepared a unique path, leaving signs along the journey to remind us of the divine purpose entrusted to us. These signs, often delicate and seemingly ordinary, reveal that since childhood you have been set apart for something greater. They are evidence that your existence is linked to a spiritual mission, a task that transcends immediate understanding. Perhaps you have experienced moments when you felt a deep connection with the world around you, or an inexplicable certainty that you were not alone. These experiences were not by chance. They are manifestations of a greater purpose. God's Word reminds us of this reality. In Jeremiah 5, "It is written before I formed you in thee, womb. I knew you before you were born. I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." One, like Jeremiah. Many chosen ones already exhibit characteristics from childhood that set them apart and prepare them for a special destiny today. I invite you to reflect on the traits of your own story and to recognize the signs that have always been present. Join this journey of self-discovery as we explore the 10 signs that may reveal that from the earliest years of life you were already chosen. Perhaps, looking back, you will realize that the clues were there all along, pointing to the divine purpose reserved for you. First, singularity. Since you were little, you may have felt different from other children. Perhaps you were more introspective, liked to observe things around you, or had thoughts and feelings that others didn't seem to share. This sense of singularity is like a feeling that you were made for something special, even if you didn't know exactly what it was. For example, while other children played and mixed easily, you might have preferred quieter moments reflecting or asking deep questions that adults found hard to answer. Maybe you felt that the world around you didn't make as much sense to you as it did to others. You may have even wondered, why do I feel this way? Why doesn't it seem like I belong completely in this place? This feeling, although sometimes lonely, doesn't mean that something was wrong with you. In fact, it's a sign that you were set apart for a greater purpose. This difference is not a flaw, but a mark. It's as if God had left a sign on your soul, showing that your life has a special meaning. A child who feels this way may be one who, even without understanding why, feels a need to care for others, to help or protect someone. For example, you may have felt empathy for an isolated classmate, or been sad to see someone suffering even if no one said anything. This shows a sensitive heart and one prepared for something greater. In Romans 12:2, the Bible reminds us, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." This passage teaches us that being different is not a problem, but part of who you are. This feeling of singularity is the first clue that God has something special in store for you. Accepting this can be the first step to understanding the purpose He has placed in your life, too. Consciousness since you were little. You may have noticed that you saw the world differently. It seemed like your senses were more alert, picking up on details that others missed. This heightened perception was not something you could fully explain or understand, but it was as if you were tuned into something greater, something beyond what your eyes could see. Perhaps while other children were distracted by games or everyday situations, you noticed emotions in people, gestures, or even subtle changes in the environment. It was as if you had a special sensitivity to perceive things that were not so obvious to those around you. This consciousness was not just about observing, but also about feeling. You could pick up a different atmosphere in places or even intuit it that something was about to happen, even without concrete proof. For example, you may have memories of moments when you felt a strong connection with nature, or with simple situations but which awakened something deep within you, a gentle breeze. The sound of rain or the silence of the night might have made you feel something inexplicable, as if the universe was trying to tell you something. These moments were not coincidences. They were signs that you had a special connection with what is beyond the physical. This sensitivity is not common, and therefore is one of the hallmarks of a chosen one. It reflects the ability to perceive and interpret the world in a unique way, revealing the special role you were called to play in Proverbs 20:27. It is written, "The human spirit is the lamp of the Lord that searches all the inner parts of a person." This passage reminds us that God often guides us through this inner perception, using our sensitivity to show us paths or alert us to important situations. Recognizing this heightened consciousness is an essential step in understanding your purpose. It is a tool given by God so that you can fulfill the mission for which you were set apart, allowing you to see beyond appearances and perceive what truly matters in your journey. 3. Empathy. One of the clearest signs that you were chosen is the ability to deeply feel the emotions of those around you. Since childhood, you may have noticed that you were different from others. In this respect, while many ignored or didn't notice what others were feeling. You seem to pick up on these emotions as if they were your own. This sensitivity was not something superficial, but an opening of the heart to understand and embrace what was happening around you. Perhaps you remembered moments when someone was sad or distressed, and even without that person saying anything, you knew they needed comfort. It was as if you were able to see beyond words, feeling the pain or joy of others, as real as if it were your own. This unique empathy is not just a personality trait, but a spiritual gift that prepares you to help care and serve. For example, you may have been the child who worried about classmates who were excluded or who found it difficult to ignore the suffering of others. Perhaps you felt the need to comfort someone, even without knowing exactly what was happening. This extraordinary empathy reflects the love of God that works in your heart, molding you to be a source of comfort and hope for others. The Word reminds us of the importance of being sensitive to the needs of others. In Romans 12:15, it is written, "Rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn." This passage shows that feeling what others feel is a way of reflecting divine love and fulfilling God's purpose in our lives. This extraordinary empathy present from an early age is not a weakness, but a strength. It is a tool that allows you to connect deeply with others, offering support, understanding, and light in difficult times. Recognize this ability as a sign of your calling to serve and to live a greater purpose, helping those in need and reflecting God's love in every act of care. 4th, premonitions from an early age. Many chosen children experience striking and intense dreams, or even premonitions that come true over time. These events do not occur by chance. They are clear signs that something greater is at work in their lives. These dreams, often laden with deep meanings, are like messages that point to the special purpose for which they were destined. Perhaps you can remember a dream that seemed much more real than any other. It may have been so clear that it remained in your memory for years. Or, who knows, you may have had that inexplicable feeling that something was about to happen, and then saw it come to fruition exactly as you imagined. These moments, although difficult to understand in childhood, were manifestations of your connection with the divine. For example, a chosen child may have dreams that warn them of future situations or visions that bring peace in times of doubt. These experiences are like seeds planted in their soul, preparing them to recognize and embrace the purpose that God has for their life. Often, these dreams come with a sense of comfort or direction, as if they were a reminder that you are not alone on your journey. The Bible talks about how God uses dreams to communicate with us. In Job 33:1-15-16, it is written, "In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls upon men, while they slumber on their beds, then he opens the ears of men and seals their instruction." 1. This passage reinforces that God often chooses dreams as a means. of guiding us and revealing His plan. If you have experienced these moments, know that they are more than mere coincidences. They are a reflection of the greater calling in your life. Recognize them as part of your connection with God, who prepares you from an early age to fulfill the special purpose He has designed for you. 5. Protection. Since childhood, you may have experienced moments when you seem to be inexplicably protected situations where in the face of some danger or unexpected event, something beyond the natural seemed to intervene, ensuring your safety. This feeling that a greater force was taking care of you was not by chance. These moments, however difficult to understand at the time, are clear signs of divine protection acting in your life. Perhaps you can recall episodes where you narrowly escaped an accident or a complicated situation that surprisingly resolved in your favor. You may have felt an invisible presence at your side as if it were a guardian, ensuring that nothing serious would happen. This protection present from an early age is a reflection of God's care, who God guards those He has chosen to fulfill a special purpose. For example, imagine a time when you by pure instinct avoided something dangerous without even realizing the real risk you were taking. Or perhaps someone came into your life at the exact moment to help you. As if sent by a higher power, these episodes are not mere coincidences. They demonstrate that your life has a greater meaning and that you are being prepared and protected to fulfill a divine mission. The Bible speaks of this special protection in Psalm 91:11. It is written, "For He will command His angels concerning you, to guard you in all your ways." This promise reminds us that God appoints His protection for those who have an important role in His plan. Recognizing this feeling of divine protection is understanding that your journey is not being traveled alone. These moments are reminders that you are part of something greater, that your life is being guided and guarded, so that God's purpose may be fulfilled. Accepting this reality is a step toward living with greater confidence and gratitude, knowing that even in the most difficult times you have never been forsaken. Your story is being written with care, and every detail is proof of the divine love and protection that surround you. 6th connection. Since you were little, you may have felt that God was very close, like a faithful friend walking by your side. This sense of closeness was not by chance or your imagination. It was a clear expression of divine love, manifesting itself in a special way in your life. Perhaps you can remember moments when you talked to God in a simple way, as if He were right there, listening to every word even without audible answers. Many chosen children have this perception, where the connection with God becomes something natural, almost like a friendship in times of difficulty. You may have experienced a peace that made no sense given the circumstances, perhaps in the midst of a chaotic situation. A feeling of tranquility and protection would envelop you, bringing the assurance that you were not alone. These episodes are signs that God has always been present, guiding and strengthening you from an early age. For example, there may have been times when even without understanding exactly why you felt the urge to pray or seek answers from something greater. These experiences demonstrate that your heart was already attuned to the divine, prepared to receive the blessings and guidance that would be part of your journey. That this close relationship with God is one of the greatest gifts a chosen one can experience. The Bible reinforces this truth in Psalm 145:8, where we read, "The Lord is near to all who call on Him, to all who call on Him in truth." This passage reminds us that God is not distant, but is always beside those who seek Him with faith and purity of heart. If you had this connection from an early age, know that it is a reflection of the special calling that God has placed in your life. This closeness is not something common, but a preparation for the unique purpose He has reserved for you. Embrace this relationship with God and allow it to continue to grow, being the foundation for facing challenges and fulfilling the mission for which you were set apart. 7th, challenges from a young age. The chosen ones tend to face situations that make them feel different. Perhaps you noticed even as a child that you didn't fit in completely among your peers, or even in your own family. This feeling of not belonging may have been painful and lonely, but at the same time it was essential to shaping who you are today. These challenges did not arise by chance. They were part of the preparation process for the greater purpose you were called to fulfill. Often this feeling of isolation makes you see the world more deeply. While others followed the flow of everyday interactions, you might have questioned things that few considered. This kind of reflection, although uncomfortable, broadened your understanding of life and the people around you. It is in these moments of solitude and introspection that God works in our hearts, developing the inner strength needed to overcome obstacles and understand the complexities of the human condition. For example, you may have been the one who cared more about the feelings of others, while your peers seemed to ignore the suffering of others. Or perhaps you felt that your ideas and thoughts were not fully understood, as if you saw the world differently. This difference was not a flaw, but a mark that you were set apart for something greater, a purpose that requires resilience and courage. The Bible teaches us that these difficulties are part of the preparation process in Romans 53:4. It is written, and not only that, but we also glory in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope. 1. These challenges are not punishments but tools to shape your character and strengthen your faith. Remember that to be a beacon of hope you must first face turbulent waters. The difficulties you have faced have served to prepare you, turning pain into strength and isolation into empathy. This process not only molds you but also empowers you to be an example of perseverance and faith, inspired by the divine purpose that has always been present in your life. A Nadic fascination from a young age, you may have shown an unusual interest in stories that transcended the ordinary, while many children were drawn to fairy tales or fictional adventures. Perhaps you prefer to hear accounts of courage, faith, and sacrifice stories of martyrs, spiritual leaders, or people who faced great adversity to fulfill a greater purpose captured your attention in a special way. This fascination was not just a preference but a reflection of the unique calling that God placed in your life, preparing you to be a light in a world often overshadowed by doubt and fear. This early interest in figures of faith may have begun with biblical stories. Perhaps the courage of David in facing Goliath touched your heart, showing that with faith in God it is possible to overcome seemingly impossible challenges. Or who knows, the perseverance of Noah, who obeyed God and built the ark amidst everyone's skepticism, may have inspired your determination. These stories did not just entertain. They planted seeds of inspiration, showing that faith can transform lives and move mountains. Another example is the life of Joseph, who faced betrayals, injustices, and years of waiting before seeing God's plan fulfilled. He was sold into slavery by his own brothers, but he maintained his trust in God. In the end, he became a leader who saved many. From famine for a child, fascinated by these narratives, the story of Joseph is a reminder that even the most difficult times have a greater purpose, something that can resonate deeply in the heart of a chosen one. In addition to biblical accounts, you may also have been interested in stories of real people who lived with courage and faith in difficult times. Martyrs who refused to abandon their beliefs, missionaries who took God's message to distant places, or reformers who fought for justice, may have fueled your desire to make a difference in the world. These examples of dedication and conviction often awakened in you the desire to live with a similar purpose. The Bible reinforces the importance of being inspired by these examples. In Hebrews 12:1 we read, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us won." This passage reminds us that the faith stories of others are beacons that encourage us to continue our own journey. If you identified with these stories from an early age, it was more than just a simple preference. It was a preparation for your calling. God was shaping your heart to be an inspiration, someone who could live with the same courage and dedication that so fascinated you. These stories were not just examples. They were reflections of the purpose that God was already revealing in your life. 9. Curiosity. From an early age, you may have been that child who asked difficult questions that adults didn't always know how to answer, questions about the purpose of life. The reason for suffering, or even who God is, often arose in your mind. This curiosity was not just childish, but a sign that you had a special connection with the divine, and a soul destined to seek deeper answers than the ordinary. Perhaps you have wondered what happens after death, why bad things happen to good people, or how the world was created while other children were satisfied with simple answers. You wanted more. This search for understanding was like a flame burning within you, fueling your need to discover truths that transcended the obvious. This thirst for spiritual knowledge was not just natural, but an indication that God was already planting seeds of purpose in your heart in the Bible. We find clear examples of people who demonstrated this spiritual curiosity. One of them is the young Samuel, who from an early age lived in the temple serving the priest Eli. In 1 Samuel 3:10, we see Samuel hearing the voice of God for the first time, not knowing immediately that it was the Lord speaking to him. He replies, "Speak, for your servant is listening." This shows that even without understanding everything, Samuel was already willing to listen and learn, revealing an open soul connected to the divine. Another example is the young Jesus who at the age of 12 was found in the temple, discussing with the religious leaders in Luke 2:46-47. We read that he asked questions and listened attentively, leaving the teachers amazed at his wisdom, just as Jesus showed an early interest in spiritual matters. The curiosity you felt in childhood is also a reflection of a greater calling. This search for answers may have led you to explore biblical stories, observe people's behavior, or even spend long hours reflecting on the meaning of life. You wanted to understand more than what was visible, because deep down you knew there was something greater guiding everything. Perhaps in moments of silence you have felt a presence or intuition that told you to keep searching. This spiritual and existential curiosity is a gift. It's as if God were preparing you to be someone who, in addition to learning, shares the answers and hope. You have found Proverbs 2:3-5 encourages us, if you call out for insight and cry aloud for understanding, if you seek her as silver and search for her as for hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of one God. This thirst for wisdom is a powerful tool that propels you on your journey. It not only shapes your faith, but also empowers you to inspire others to seek truth that transform lives. Perhaps in childhood, you overcame challenges such as the loss of a loved one, financial difficulties, or family problems. Even if those times were painful, they shaped you, preparing you to face even greater situations in the future. This resilience is like spiritual armor that helps you keep going, even when the weight seems too great. It is not easy to understand, but the difficulties you have faced were not in vain. Every obstacle overcome has made you stronger, more prepared, and more capable of fulfilling the purpose God has for you. The resilience you demonstrate is a reflection of the divine plan that is at work in your life. Be grateful for this strength that often seems to come out of nowhere. It is a reminder that you are never alone, and that God will always be by your side, even in the most difficult battles. Use this strength to keep moving forward, knowing that each overcoming brings you closer to your destiny as a chosen one. Recognizing these signs in your life is just the first step in a journey that is constantly unfolding. Each phase of your story brings new revelations, challenges, and opportunities for spiritual growth. Moments that seemed insignificant in childhood can take on new meaning as you advance in your walk with God. That imaginary friend you talked to may have been a spiritual guide sent to watch over you the times when you escaped difficult situations without a logical explanation. Were in fact divine interventions being chosen, does not mean having a life without difficulties. On the contrary, your journey is marked by challenges that shape your character just as gold is refined by fire to become pure and more valuable. These moments of trial are not punishments, but stages of learning and strengthening. They serve to prepare you for the greater purpose that God has reserved for you. If you recognize these signs in your own story, know that this is no coincidence. You are part of a divine plan that is being revealed every day. Share your experience with others who are also discovering what it means to be chosen. Your story can inspire and strengthen those who are still at the beginning of this journey. Let your light shine brightly, illuminating the path for those around you, and reflecting God's love in every step you take. This light is not just for you, but for everyone who seeks to find their purpose. Comment below. If you recognize these signs in your childhood, let's share, learn, and grow together on this blessed journey. Amen. Music.